Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And today we're going to talk about what you guys have all been seeing in the news lately is about how many pro NFL football players are now kneeling during the national anthem. So, the first question is, can they do this? Well, obviously, yes. There's currently no NFL rule, sorry, that prohibits any form of protest during the national anthem. However, the NFL could theoretically change this and fire or penalize players because it is a private business, and essentially what they are is paid actors. There is this so it's not really censoring their free speech. However, I believe that the NFL players should be able to protest. I disagree with what they're protesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. So, what should Donald Trump do? I think he made a crucial mistake saying that they should be fired right away, and that you shouldn't watch football. You should watch football. It's a great game. I enjoy it very much. However, um, if you don't agree with them, then don't watch it, because if you don't watch it, they'll be disincentivized to protest real quickly. As soon as the NFL's ratings start to drop, which I believe they're already starting to drop, then eventually the NFL will be forced to do something. Um, and I think that the players will be very upset, but since they're being paid millions of dollars, they won't sacrifice this for their protest. I think you should let them protest. However, I disagree that they should bring politics into something that is into sports because it brings everybody together. I think they're really having the opposite effect they want to have. Instead of creating unity, they're just creating more division. And first of all, I think their uh, initial protest, why they're protesting, is also just phony and extremely collectivist. They're using the so-called shootings to make it seem as though if African Americans are oppressed. Um, so there is, however, people think that just because Africans are more likely to go to jail when they're arrested, they're actually arrested more often. So they also say this. They also say that black people don't make as much as white people, and they're saying that this was caused by systemic oppression. The belief that since the founding of America, black people have oppressed. And I would agree for a large part of our history, African Americans were oppressed, rightly so. There was slavery, which lasted until 1965, and then slavery was abolished. And then after slavery there's a system of segregation called created by the Jim Crow laws in the South. This made it so that effectively made African Americans um what's it called? Second class citizens. And this was oppressing black people. I would agree. I thought that the abolishment of the Jim Crow laws was a great thing for humanity and also a great thing for America. However, we've gotten to the point where I do not believe African Americans on a institutional level are oppressed. This is simply not true. If so, how could the highest office in the land, the President of the United States, be a black person if black people are oppressed? It's it's not that is just unconceivable that a country just 60 years ago oppressed a minority and now they can rise to the power. This is awesome. America is a unique country. We are very compassionate. We're very fundamentally anti-racist. And there's two reasons for this. First of all, the Americans are a people of change and we want to bring liberty and freedom. This has always been a fundamental idea. The founding fathers knew that it was wrong to have slavery. Just look how touchy of an issue it was. Even many of the slaveholders at the time of the American Revolution started to realize that slavery was a negative thing, a wrong thing, an immoral thing to do. And also another reason. There's an economic reason for this. First of all, it is inefficient to be racist. If you, as a worker, can provide a superior product or superior labor than a white man, then you will be hired. Um, One of the things that we know about human tendencies is people will sacrifice their morals to make profit. It's not usually the other way around. Just look at corporations. They cut corners. They do everything they can to earn money. So why would they want to pay someone who does a less good of job or pay someone more for something that does not increase their profit? Why would America be um racist if they're fundamentally greedy? Seems to be like a paradox of the left. They see America as racist and they see as America as greedy, and you really can't be both. It doesn't work. Okay, now let's look at some statistics here. So, first of all, you got to realize is that the vast majority of African Americans live in two areas. They live in the urban cores. So if you can see this, Chicago, Detroit, the San Francisco Bay Area. However, the vast majority of African Americans live in the southeastern United States, particularly along this belt right here. This is called the Black Belt, and this was actually originally where slavery was the highest, like the absolute number of slaves were the highest, and they have actually not moved very far. They did move somewhat to the out to the urban cores, but that was in search of jobs, and this was primarily due the mass immigration during the earlier industrial revolution. So Africans were looking for jobs, and the South, ever since the Civil War and before the Civil War, has been um a lot poorer, and this is actually starting to change. Like the income of Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, and Texas have increased dramatically. However, the rest of the old South has not been so lucky. So, instance, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, and so forth, they're still relatively poor. Okay, so we also have to address that. So black people are on average poorer, and are on average are white people poorer in the South too. Well, this is true. Okay, so West Virginia is overwhelmingly white, and so are the northern counties of Alabama, Georgia, parts of western North Carolina, and eastern Tennessee, Kentucky. These areas are actually very poor as well. There's an even distribution of people being poor. However, yes, in some cases there are richer white, but there's another reason for this. Um, First of all, you're never going to have a society of complete equality. I would argue against that because any society that is completely equal was created by the government. It's not a country I want to live in. Um, Everybody's born with natural talents. Some are equal, are more equal. Some people are better than others. Some people are not as good as others. This is simply the luck of the draw. However, in America, everybody, if they work hard and try hard and think smart, can succeed. Everybody can earn an income in the United States. There are plenty of jobs for those who are willing to put in the extra effort. And if there is no jobs, you can create your own jobs. In America, it's relatively easy to start a business. However, that's changing. The government's interfering more and more in our daily lives. And this is an awful thing. And I think that this is part of the reason why African Americans are poor, is because they are so dependent on the welfare state. They've had generation after generation after generation that are um, essentially living off the government. This is, I think, an extension of the plantation system. Because let's think about the plantation system. So they provided labor, the plantation owners, and the plantation owners gave them a bare minimum of living. They gave them health care because they wanted to keep their property alive. They wanted to keep them relatively safe, relatively clean. And there's some historians argued that it was probably better to be a slave than a poor white in the South, as they weren't always provided with basic livings. However, they were treated better. Slavery was an awful institution and did not benefit the slave very much. But in some sense, there was an incentive to give them the bare minimum. And that seems like the same thing with the Democrats. Today, they just simply have a much more how would I explain this? They're very much more focused on giving the Africans enough, but never enough to get them ahead. So essentially, they've created these urban plantations where they want to give them healthcare and food, and they give them, but however, they do not get labor in return. So African Americans are habitually poor, and this has incentive. And now let's look. If you don't believe me, here's a income chart of the United States. And notice the poorest counties in the United States are concentrated in the southeast United States, and it's just in this area. And a large amount of the black counties are in here. And however, there is large amounts of poor white counties here, as you saw, West Virginia, Kentucky, and look at this huge area of western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee, also poor white dominated area. See, whites and blacks are equally poor in the South. I don't understand why people. And notice really white areas, and generally the are very wealthy. Look at the Midwest. Look at even like the white area, like these areas of Texas. See, these used to be poor and they're no longer because of oil. If so, Texas would probably be equally poor. However, things are changing. And with the rise of the welfare has led to the increase in single parent home exponentially in the South and the African American community. Okay, look at non-Hispanic white. Look at the single parent homes, 25%. And then compare this to the African homes with 67%. And the reason why this is so important, as in a single household, there's only one income. So, on average, the Africans will live much poorer than white American households because they have two parents, so they earn more money. And then there's lots of statistics that show that living in a single parent household is very disadvantageous as you're not giving the attention you need. You lack the financial resources to succeed. You're less likely to succeed in school. This is one of the greatest single indicators of poverty is living in a single parent home, and this happens to hit hard in the African American community. And this is why they will constantly be in debt to the government, and they will be living off welfare. This is a huge problem in the African American community. So, and then this leads to more crime. Poverty leads to crime, not race leads to crime. This is what we have to understand, all you race realists out there. The poorer you live, the more likely you're going to commit crime. That's a single thing. This is why there are more Africans in jail. It's simply because they have less income due to living in single parent homes that starts with the cultural addiction to welfare. So, you should maybe stand up for the national anthem since America stands for freedom, for liberty. America actually, hold on a second, we're oppressing people, we need to fix this. And this is what we did. We fought a whole war to free the Africans, slaves, and white Americans then helped to end segregation in the Deep South. You guys, you have to remember that without the Europeans noticing that they had a problem, and the Africans wouldn't be sleeping. Because if you notice where slavery is still present today, it is still in Africa. Mauritania still has over 500,000 chattel slaves. There's not freedom in the Arab world. There's not freedom in the vast majority of Asia. Freedom, this idea that all people were created equal, comes from the West. And the fact that you are disrespecting America, the symbol of the West, the bearer of liberty, I think is very atrocious. I get it, you have the freedom to speech, but maybe you should think before you protest. Thank you, everybody.